Okay, going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, live.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. And if I heaver, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who's heavering to you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm working, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you. And the money comes in for the work I do, I'll pass almost every penny on to you. When I come home, oh, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home to you. And if I drove, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's going over you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walks 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm lonely, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's lonely without you. And when I'm dreaming, well, I know I'm gonna dream about the time when I'm with you. When I go out, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. And when I come home, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home with you. I'm gonna be the man who's coming home with you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more to be the man who walks 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. And I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door.
Hello and welcome to Glasgow 2024, a Worldcon for our futures. Quite glad I can now drop the in because we are officially the seated Worldcon. Thank you to the 776 people who decided Glasgow was an awesome place to be in 2024. We are so very, very excited, and I am very excited and somewhat nervous to be hosting our first official Glasgow 2024 Presents event, but I am absolutely delighted that I have Patricia A. Jackson, who is just a generally marvellous person, as our first official guest for Glasgow 2024. Before I let her introduce herself, I'm just going to remind us all of a few housekeeping issues. Of course, if you are watching on YouTube or if you're with us on the webinar, welcome everyone. Remind you that we are bound by the Code of Conduct, which basically means that no hate speech, no bigotry, no homophobia, no transphobia, no bullying, harassment of any kind. It's a one strike and you're out policy. Mr. Dave Green, our lovely moderator, will immediately boot your butt if you behave inappropriately. So you have been warned. I am PS Livingstone, or Pam. As you know, I am the area head for Glasgow 2024 Presents, and I am an editor, ghostwriter and author. And Patty.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I was one of those votes for Glasgow, just saying. My name is Patricia A. Jackson. I go by Patty, and by day, I am a lowly English teacher at the high school level, and by night, I'm an author. And my debut novel, Forging a Nightmare, came out November 2021, and I'm tickled to be here to talk about it. And book bans.
And book bans, yes, we're going to talk about all the things, all the things. So I think we can see people in chat. If you want to say hello or let us know that you're here, you can do that. I think, Patty, you can see that you can talk to our attendees if you wish. If you want to talk to them, though, just make sure you switch the bottom bit to who you're talking to as opposed to just me. Otherwise, you just say hello to me and they won't know you're talking.
Okay.
Oh, hello, Annabelle. And I'm assuming also Omar. They come as a pair, a lovely pair. We love them. Cool. Hala's here as well. Yep, Omar is there. Great. Okay. Well, also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can, of course, put your comments and questions, etc., into the chat. They will be passed to us here. So if you think of anything pressing, please let us know. There's Rob. Hello. So. Okay, so let us get started then. So first question, Forging a Nightmare obviously has been, well, huge. So I know that, certainly, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, like your signings and things like that, that just everyone telling you how much they loved it. I loved it as well. But I want to know what your inspiration was for writing the book.
I am a horse crazy girl. I am one of the millions of girls that fell in love with horses when I was very little, but I never outgrew that particular phase. My horse was my confessor, my companion, and the one who didn't judge me and would carry me and uplift me and inspire me. And the inspiration was, if I could take my horse into every situation in my life, how cool would that be? My first horse was named Amadeus. And it would have just been nice for him to bring his personality to someone who said something unkind to me, because it would not have gone well. Yeah. And then on the religious side of it, someone told my mother that she was not baptized correctly. And
what's the wrong way to do it, just out of interest?
Well, because she wasn't drowned, because they didn't take her beneath the pulpit and drown her in the tub because she had water sprinkled on her head. And I was
okay,
like,
so the volume of water matters.
Well, my thing is, you want me to believe in ghosts, but the ghosts have a preference for sprinkled water over drowning someone. Let me break your shit for you. So there it is. Let me break stuff for you. So yeah, that I proceeded to do that as well.
Okay, so sort of a cross between wanting to set your horse on people and giving the two fingers up to the big guy.
Well, to people who think they know what the big guy wants, because that's
fair.
It's people who are trying to translate, from something that probably shouldn't be translated from. To be honest, we all have to do our own thing. Don't tell me what to do. No danger.
Okay, great. All right. So the book then, which leads us quite well into our next question, is you've drawn a lot of mythologies here. So you've got your kind of central figure god, not that we necessarily see that character or anything, but there's this omnipresent sort of god there. But you've kind of brought in lots of different mythologies and concepts and sort of made them this one massive world. So how do you do that? There's a lot of threads you're pulling on here. What did you do to kind of bring all that together?
I have friends that are Satanists. I have friends that are neo-pagans, Norse pagans, witches, druids, and we're all just cool. And my thought is, who's wrong? Well, nobody's wrong.
Or everybody's wrong.
Yes. How cool would it be if it all just existed together? And then just trying to figure out the organization of how all of these faiths can coexist at the same time. It just so happens that in Forging a Nightmare, it is the Christian God of the Christian mythos who is on top at the moment and has cast all the other pantheons into hell.
Mm-hmm. Just smooshed them all together and rolling on high.
Out of mind. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's a question I was gonna ask you about later. We'll kind of come back to it in a different way. But obviously, you're saying the Christian God is on top, and that's one of the things I think I said just before that I loved about the book. Without wanting to do too many spoilers here, and if you really don't want any spoilers of any kind, please cover your eyes and ears. Are you doing that? Good. I'll just wait for effect. Is that the thing I loved? I think it was the line in your book like God doesn't like competition. That's what he hates above all things.
There are no contenders to his throne. Yes.
Yes. I think that sort of drives so much of the book is just, this is right and this is wrong, depending when you ask and who you ask.
Yes.
And that's a very kind of flexible rule, depending on whether God thinks that, oh, well, that might cause me a bit of bother. That's okay today. That's all right. We're all right with that.
It's okay. Just today.
Just today. But if you ask me tomorrow, I might change my mind.
Almost guaranteed.
Yes. Yeah, I love that about the book, and we'll come back to that a bit later. So you mentioned your horsiness and that you are a very accomplished writer. And I think that certainly comes through in the book, and the mannerisms and the sort of understanding is certainly there. But obviously the horses in your book, not really horses. So they no. They may look a little bit horsey until they burst into flame, but tell us about nightmares and what do you need to do to tame a nightmare?
Well, you need to be an angel. That's one.
Okay, well, I'm strike out, I'm done, but yeah, okay, keep going.
And one, you need to be an archangel in order to make one. The process of forging a nightmare it's torturous. You take a human soul and you just torture it beyond its limits by forcing it to live its worst moments over and over again until it rises as this horrific beast, this war horse. And then they are trained for war. They are trained to go against angels who are still in heaven because fallen angels lose some of their divinity. And in order to even the score, they need a nightmare in order to go against an actual angel. But in the real world, just a really tough rider, because I have ridden some nightmares. They have names. I own one, actually. His name is Indy, and boy, he'll let you know if he is not happy for some reason.
This after Indiana Jones, or is it just a coincidence?
He was named Indy because he is the great grandson of some famous racehorse. Okay. I think it was AP Indy is the name of the racehorse, who did not go to the Kentucky Derby, but was a brilliant racehorse at some point.
Okay, cool. Oh, nice wee bit of trivia there as well. All right, so your nightmares then, and this, I mean, there's numerous nightmares in the book, but your main nightmare is Annabelle. And Annabelle, oof, see, messed it up already.
It's okay. It's all right.
Is she coming is she coming after me though? That is the question.
Nah, she's good. She's good. She likes you. She likes your accent. There it is.
Okay, cool. Right. Saved by the Scots. Right. So Annabelle. So she's a little bit special to other nightmares though, isn't she? And that some of her abilities and things are a wee bit extra. So without spoiling too much, why is she so special?
I don't know how I can't not spoil it.
I know.
She okay, I'm gonna say this. She is not a descendant of Eve. She's a descendant of the first woman of Eden, who is not Eve.
Okay.
And anyone who's a descendant of this particular person would make a very extraordinary nightmare.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll cut it off there because we don't want to delve too deep in case people haven't read it. So we'll behave ourselves and not give away too much. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that God, didn't like competition and things in it, and I think he comes across as quite petty at times, which again, I think I've said to you that I really liked that because, you know, he's not really any better than anybody else. He's still like a kid with his toys that he doesn't want to share. And the angels in the book, you dealt with racism a lot, but from their angelic perspective, and that there were groups of people they didn't like because for whatever reason, again, I'm trying not to spoil too much, but they're supposed to be heavenly creatures, and they're kind of consumed by their petty grievances, as while also being convinced of their own superiority. And we see that really mirrored probably in society today. So was your decision to kind of take that aspect a purposeful allegory for what sort of the division that we're seeing today, particularly in the States over the last few years?
Oh, absolutely. I'm amazed by this need for someone to be better or supreme over other people. I don't understand it. And if you were to ask those people if they were being supremacists, of course they would deny that. But they don't want anyone on their level, and they don't want to be treated the way they treat other people. So, and the angels mirror that. The mythology that I created in Forging a Nightmare and going forward with it shows that the angels were also created in stages. And some of them are not very beautiful because God was new to what he was doing. So some of them are very crude looking until he refined them, but they were too perfect. So in order to find purpose in his existence, he had to create something imperfect. Man.
Okay. So the angels then, you said obviously a lot of people you said they're like are not going to admit that they think they're superior. The angels potentially in this book, though, they are a little bit more blatant about the fact that they're better, though, aren't they? Perhaps a little
Depending
bit more
upon if
blatant.
they're with their crew. Yes. If they're with their crew, yeah, we're better than everybody else. Yes.
Right. Okay. But yeah. Okay. So with their own crew, but then they maybe wouldn't admit it elsewhere.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I think yeah, reading it, I kept kind of seeing like certain comments they make or ways they behaved and things, and I kind of like, God, I'm sure this has been on the news, recently and things like that. And I don't know if you kind of used any real life events for inspiration for any of this, but I kept recognizing them. I don't know if that's just, I said, not coincidence, because obviously you have made this a purposeful choice to address this issue, but was there any actual real world events, or was it really just experience and sort of a general,
I tend to be a bottler. So when something's negative, I like take it all in, but I don't want to deal with it. And I just internalize it. So I think there were some things that actually did come out through experiences. But part of it is living between worlds. Michael Childs lives between worlds because he's half angel, half human. And that's how I've lived my life. As a Black woman, I have lived in a mostly white world, and you're not quite accepted. It's clear that you don't quite belong. But when you go into a Black world, you sound white, you act white, you listen to white music, you don't fit in there either. So I was like, well, I don't want to play on either of your playgrounds. I'll just walk the world in between. So thank goodness for being an only child. I didn't mind being alone on my playground. And that's why my imagination is overactive. So that plays into it a little bit too, where you just don't fit. So the angels just don't fit. And they make a habit of, beating down on someone else who just doesn't fit. Because that's how I lived my life, between worlds.
Yeah. And well, I'll address this a little bit later. I mean, do you still feel like you're between worlds?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something, if you don't mind, do you experience that from both sides? Do you feel like do you feel like you don't fit, or do you think other people are saying you don't fit?
There's not a sense of camaraderie. I mean, I have white friends. I mean, and they love me and we are a family. But I go to other places and I don't see people who look like me. I feel like an outsider. And when I do find people who look like me, Sometimes I don't speak the lingo, or I don't listen to the right kind of music, or I don't dress a certain kind of way, or worse, I'm a nerd and they're not nerds. And my true home is among nerds. And that's where I feel the most at home. I remember going to my first Worldcon in DC, and I'm standing in line and I'm feeling so comfortable. And I'm like, what is going on? Oh, you're with nerds. Okay.
I found my people.
I'm with my people. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'm glad you found your people, and I'm glad Worldcon was the place where you found your people. Do you mean, is there a real pressure then that, that you have to talk a certain way, or there's music? Is that something that you'd feel pressure about?
I don't do pressure, because as an only child, I'll leave. I'll be like, bye, and take myself somewhere else. I really dislike being told you talk like a white person, because what is that? What is that? Are you giving superiority to someone else because they know how to speak supposedly the proper dialect, the standard dialect? I mean, because I can go back and forth. I can do the jive and the shuck and the carry on, but this is me. I don't need to put on a suit or a costume to be what you think I'm supposed to be, because that's just too many calories. I'm not doing that.
Calories.
I have this horse named Maya. She is not a nightmare, because her favorite speeds are slow and stop. And I love her because we go around the circle, she'll stop. And she's like, that's too many calories. You're tired now. We're going back to the barn. I've adopted that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I used to have a horse like that. Speedy horse. The other horses would all go off the starting gate, and she'd be like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah,
just stand
my
there.
hamsters don't work that way. No.
No, that's good. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to circle back and talk a little bit more about your sort of experience of writing and what inspired you. But I want to dig into Forging a Nightmare a little bit more first, if that's okay. One of the things that I think, again, I've talked about is the detail in the book. Enochian, have I pronounced that right?
Yes.
Yes, got it. Win. Right. Enochian, which is the sort of language of, I suppose, angels, and you've got sort of other languages in there as well. And you've done an awful lot of research for this. You've got symbols, you've even got a wee dictionary at the back so that we can know how to say things, which is amazing, which I'll probably still pronounce wrong, but this is, I'm pleased about my Enochian. I'm quite happy about that. So how do you go about that then? I mean, can you speak fluent Angel?
I cannot speak fluent Angel. I wish I could. It's a crazy language. You almost have to pronounce every single letter of the word. And I want to do a whole custom refit of the language. I love languages. I'm an English teacher. And in my Star Wars days, I created the language of Old Carillion and Socorro, sort of following in the footsteps of Tolkien and his Elvish and whatnot. I love that kind of thing. And I want to do the same thing for Enochian. And some of those words are genuine Enochian, and some of them are just, Patty decided to make stuff up because I couldn't find it. And just went with from that and tried to make it as authentic as possible in its use. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can we see some sort of Enochian dictionary in the future?
I don't know about that.
No pressure, just sort of drop that on you.
I would rather do my Star Wars language dictionary first, if I may.
Well, there's certainly some love in the chat for it. So David said, I was very glad of all Patricia's work in Star Wars. So
thank you.
There's a lot of love for it out there. So
thank you.
So obviously Star Wars languages and Enochian. Do you actually speak any other languages?
I don't have enough people around me to speak other languages. I was fairly, I want to say sort of conversational in Norwegian, but I had a pony club mate who was from Norway, and we would go back and forth. And I could speak enough Norwegian to surprise someone at my barn one day. And I said, do you speak Norwegian? In Norwegian. And she, and I was like, oh, That's all I can say.
My bluff has been called.
And I recently had a flat tire in Philadelphia. That was a whole adventure. And there were two gentlemen, and they were speaking some kind of an African dialect, but there was French thrown in between. And from my high school days, I remembered a little bit of French. So when I handed him my money, I was like, merci beaucoup. And the eyes got big. And you speak French? So in French, I said, no, I do not speak French. It was just wonderful. So I wish I did, but I'm having a hard time deciding what language I want to speak, you know, like Klingon, Elvish, love
Scots.
Italian. Scots. There it is. Gaelic. I want to speak Gaelic.
Well, Scots and Gaelic are two different languages.
I know. I want both. Scots, Gaelic. There you go.
So I'll keep working on it in the tab. You know, I'll drop my wee phrases in now and again. So Dave's also saying,
you were on the swearing panel. You might have me saying something naughty, and I would enjoy that, but I would probably get in trouble.
I'm not seeing a downside. So sorry, you're bringing it by an evil side of wanting to do this now. Dave says Drake Paulson and Cecius Brandi are all-time underrated Star Wars characters.
Thank you. Thank you. All I can say is cross your fingers. That's all I can say.
Yeah, so we've got to. So we'll speak again when we can speak again. Okay, so Forging Nightmare then, characters. Annabelle, we have apparently everyone's nerding out. I don't know if you saw that. Annabelle, really distinct personalities with all of them. That was saying you do have a massive cast here, and there's a lot of kind of sub characters and, you know, very important characters that have to have presence in a short period of time. When I write, I would say most of my characters have a fragment of me in them. Do you think that's true? I know Annabelle is extremely close to your heart, and I know that she's you a little bit at least, or sometimes the rage you want to be. So other than her, do you have a favorite character, and how reflected are you in that character?
You are absolutely correct. I feel that even your difficult characters have a splinter of the author in them that makes them so effective. And while I see myself most connected to Michael because he is me, trapped between two worlds, I think my favorite character is definitely the Horseman Pestilence. She is so spicy. I mean, because I had 4 male characters come as the 4 horsemen, and I'm like, this isn't working for me. And then Pestilence was like, yo, here I am, you know, spicy, yes. And I just love her because she's similar to Annabelle. She says what she means and means what she says, but she'll put you down in a heartbeat. Yeah,
she's a little bit more of a gentle side to Pestilence, I think, you know, in the. I think Annabelle, we see that, you know, she starts to, you know, be a bit more sort of open to things, I think. But Pestilence, I mean, she's much more confident in who she is, I think. For me, anyway, I felt that, and that she just didn't need to have, Annabelle's not all front, but Pestilence doesn't need that because she's super confident.
Annabelle's very much trying to keep you at a distance. Yes.
Yeah, and Pestilence didn't really, for me, she didn't need to, because she's like, I know who I am, I know what I'm going to do. And she had some of the best one-liners in that book. She's
a great character.
Yeah, she is. So yeah, no, I'm definitely in agreement with you on that then. So Annabelle, we'll quickly touch back on her before we kind of move on a little bit. So she's very unapologetic, you know, as a woman, as a nightmare. And I know that you, obviously Michael is yourself, but Annabelle, you felt a really strong connection to as well. Is there something about her in particular that why you feel that way about it?
Annabelle will choose violence to get people away from her. And I just admire that in a sense. She'll swallow your soul. She'll put you in your place and hurt your feelings if you overstep. And I sort of wish I had that. I have it a little bit. I have a little bit. I have dreadlocks because of Annabelle. This book almost didn't get written because of Annabelle, because she's just such a strong personality. But she also wants to be left alone. And all these people come after her because they need something. They can't get to their final destination because they need her. And she doesn't want to be involved because it means loving people and caring for people, which hurts. And she doesn't want to do that. And, you know, I think it was Keanu Reeves that said something, that the people who are usually alone are the ones who have cared too much, loved too much, and given too much of themselves. And I'm definitely there. And so is Annabelle. Okay.
But she has a redemption arc to an extent. Is there one for Patty then?
Yeah, because I have a redemption arc every day. And it's with kids. When I go into classrooms, I asked my seniors the other day to tell me a heroic female figure. And there were a group of boys who I thought they were just trying to get special favor. And they were like, it's you, Miss Jackson. And I'm like, seriously, guys, come on. They're like, no, you care about kids. When kids are in trouble, they come and talk to you, and you listen more than other teachers listen. And you're always here for us. And they were serious. And I came at them, I'm like, seriously, come on. And all the kids in the class are like nodding, you know, their heads. And that was very special to me, because there are some ugly elements in our school community that have listed me as a groomer.
What?
And why? Yes, because I use children's preferred pronouns.
Right. So by giving them agency and giving them identity and supporting that, you are clearly trying to groom them. And yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It's like, you wonder, like, some people, it's like, kids know when a teacher is real or gives a crap, you know.
They do.
And, you know, I mean, I taught for 12 years, you know, and the kids know when you're being honest with them. They know when you're not. They know when you care or what you care about. You know, they're not stupid. And I understand, like, why would you want to be a teacher and not respect a kid saying, this is who I am? I don't understand that.
And what does it cost you?
Nothing.
What does it cost you? It costs you absolutely nothing.
But these people clearly have too much pride to admit that they're, you know, wrong, or that it's something that they can't understand, therefore it must be wrong.
They are supremacist in every extreme of the word. And only what they see as noble and pure should exist. And if you don't fit this box, then you must be impure. There must be something wrong with you. Yeah, whatever. Keep walking.
So, I mean, how do you respond to that then? I mean, that's one of your colleagues, presumably in your workplace of work, is making those kind of claims. Well, how do you deal with that? Because I mean, I'd want to go Annabelle Reigns on them, to be perfectly honest, which I'm guessing you may be tempted.
Unfortunately, my hands are tied, so I can't really do anything. I can't respond on social media.
No, fair enough.
I can't be seen as retaliating. So I try not to let them live in my head. I try to live in my reality, which is with kids. You know, just this morning, a kid was upset and came, and we sat and we talked. You know, this is my job, and I can't let those things distract me from my job of just being a good human being and a good model for kids. I always talk about the inner 8-year-old when I'm writing and how important that is. And I was talking to a young man because he's very, very intense. He's very serious. And I'm like, dude, you're crushing the soul of your inner 8-year-old. You need to knock it off. Don't grow up. Don't ever really grow up. And he's like, no one's ever said that to me before. And I'm like, good. You know, and you get to see him kind of relax a little bit. Yeah. Just dealing with my kids. That's where I want to be. I don't have to deal with any adults if I don't have to. Try to avoid it.
Yeah, no, with you. So, but as I say, was it, you have to get older, but you can stay immature indefinitely.
Please. Please.
So, yes, well, listen, with both, well, now in my 40s, but my partner and I, who are both in our 40s, have been known to chase each other through the house with Nerf guns with a colander over my head. So... This is the level that I like to live at.
That's awesome.
It's
Never
awesome.
change that. That's great.
Who doesn't love a Nerf gun, right? So, okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna skip here just because you were talking about that. There was a question I wanted to ask you later, but you kind of brought it up about like the kids there. So, okay, yeah. So you're teaching young people about writing. You teach English. It's literature, world literature, and creative writing. Is that
Yes.
right? Yes. So I'll come back to the other question later. But what I want to ask you is, what have they taught you, other than not growing up?
That fear is real. I don't think I ever had a fear with writing. And they have a legitimate fear of exposing themselves in their writing. And they've taught me how to legitimize that fear, but to manipulate it in such a way that it eventually just goes away and they can just breathe. And when I get myself all stirred up, because I do, I legitimize my fear. You have a right to feel the way you feel right now, but let's see why you feel that way. And let's take a deep breath and exhale all that fear and make it go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is some very good advice. That's great. Thank you. Okay, we're going to dig back in a little bit then. So we talked about the book, characters, the work that's gone into it. I'd like to ask you a little bit about what the challenges were, I suppose, in terms of actually writing the book. You sort of hinted at some of it, you know, in terms of internally, you said your braids are a result of that. So some of your internal challenges and any challenges that you faced with the actual publication of the book.
I wrote my first little novel when I was 8 years old. I had seen Star Wars, and when I came home, I wrote this little novel about a girl and her magical horses. They were all colors of the rainbow, and they were going to save the galaxy. And the little girl was white and had blonde hair and blue eyes because that's what the world told me was beautiful. And it wasn't until my late teens, early 20s that a professor challenged me and asked me, how many Black people do you have in this manuscript that you've written? And I was livid. I'm still livid. I'm traumatized by the fact that she would ask me that because I couldn't answer her. And when I got into my Star Wars stories, I created the world of Socorro for dark-skinned people. I didn't say they were Black because I was too afraid to do that. Because my father had raised me that you never call attention to yourself because that could be dangerous. My father was almost lynched when he was a young man in Alabama. So you did not call attention to yourself. And moving from there to Annabelle, she was the first character that came to me as Black and was unapologetically so. And Michael was white, believe it or not. And just moving through the novel, the two of them just were not vibing together. And it's because I was denying who I was because I was Michael. Mm-hmm. And I was seeing myself as something that I was not. And it wasn't until I embraced who I was and Annabelle forced me to do that. You're a Black woman and you're beautiful and you need to knock it off and own that. And when I did that, Michael became Black. And that's when everything just started to vibe together. And the two of them started to hit it off a little bit better because Annabelle was like, he was not worthy. He's not worthy. So now he's worthy. So that was the first challenge, getting over that.
What was the crunch moment there though? Sorry to kind of interrupt for 1 second. Because you know, you're saying like you had that. Did you actually, was it like a conversation like with the character, were you arguing back and forward, or was there just a epiphany? What was the crunch for you that you just went, oh God?
I believe writing is a playground, and you go out in the playground and you build these really cool toys, and all your imaginary friends, your characters come out there on the playground. And Annabelle was a savage. And she was just like, oh no, this story is about me. No, honey, you need to carry him from point A to point B because he can't get there unless you do. And Michael's just kind of like, I ain't talking to her. I'm scared.
I can picture you writing this stuff out, having all these conversations.
it was horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying sometimes. And I was like, Michael, you just got to step up to her. Oh no. But eventually it came together because Anna was like, I will concede to the fact that he's an idiot and I have to carry him from point A to point B. I think my horses sort of felt that way about me sometimes. This girl's trying to get killed. I'm going to have to take care of her. And that's really what it was. Anna having to carry Michael and me through the course of the novel to help us become better people. So that was the personal internal struggle. The other struggle with the industry is the character of Ziri was not the original character. There was a character named Weya who was Lakota Sioux. And because I am not Indigenous, I was asked to remove that character so that it did not appear to be appropriation. And I was really sad about that because I'd done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people about language and customs and everything else. And so I chose to replace him with Ziri, who is of the Tuareg of Mali. I know so little about them. But because they're Black and I'm Black, I guess that was supposed to be okay. So I had a lot of hard learning to catch up with to create a really cool and rounded character who in some cases turned out to be somewhat better for the book, but it still made me sad because that was a huge shift. That was definitely a pivot for me. And I had to learn as much as I could about Tamashek, the language. And when the audiobook came, I had to find someone who spoke the language. You're not going to find that on Google Translate. Just telling you, you're not going to find. I found like 8 professors, and I found one gentleman in Berlin, and he's like, yes, but I'm going to have a Dutch accent. I really don't care. please record this for me. And he did. He was wonderful, and he got a credit for the audiobook. But that was tough, and that was definitely an eye opener for me.
Yeah. So that's something I would ask you. Did you obviously you've done a lot of research, you've spoken to a lot of people, and I know there was a sensitivity there, and you decided to take it out. Do you think going forward with your writing that you would be the same again?
I will be very careful. People get real sensitive and real bent out of shape and can ruin a career or ruin the longevity of a book if they get upset and their noses get bent out of place over something. So I'm more sensitive, and I understand it. I understand going into someone else's space and being respectful of that space without being a cancer in that space. And some people need to learn that lesson. And maybe someday we won't always have this stay in your lane mentality, because I don't think that's healthy for the publishing industry. But the way the publishing industry can fix that is by acknowledging more diverse voices and bringing them forward so that they can see themselves. Representation matters. I love Star Wars and I love Lord of the Rings. And when I don't see myself, I do feel a certain kind of way. And when I was a little girl, I had to be something that I wasn't because I wasn't represented on the screen.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I hope that the hope is then that once we get that right, once we have own voices and Black voices and ethnic voices and all of different groups are represented within that, and we're hearing more trans voices and all of that, is it going to open up then? Once we're seeing that equality, is that the hope for you?
I have to hope for that, but one of the lines in my most recent whip that I'm working on said, "We are most vulnerable when we hope, because we can be disappointed." But I'm gonna die on that hill. I'm gonna wait for that to happen. I'm going to push in my own writing for it to happen. If I don't see people of color in certain spaces, I'm going to insert them. I'm going to be rebellious about it.
I think, again, though, that your rebellion is much loved, to say, judging by comments that I'm seeing here. So, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we've kind of talked about that then, about that forging a nightmare was a personal exorcism. You've used that term. We've talked about sort of crunch moment, the argument you had. Is that a journey you're still on? Have you
Yes,
arrived?
I think I am still on the journey, but I'm closer to a better destination. Though I don't think I'll ever get to the destination, because I feel that we all grow and we can just continue to grow. When you stop growing, you start dying. That's how I see it. I want to be a better me. I don't want to be an ally. I want to be an abolitionist. I want to get the work done. I want to be active in the trenches and making change happen. So when someone says something that's out of turn, I'm going to be that person that says, oh, well, wait a minute, calm down. That was inappropriate. Let me have a teachable moment with you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be that person, and I'm growing into that person. So
do you find that that's received well most of the time? Because we've all seen people go off on a mental, because someone said, listen, maybe you're not being very kind. They've tried to be nice and someone's gone apeshit about it. You know, do you find that you're received well when you do that? Because I know that you are keen to teach, you're not keen to scold, and you're not there to discipline, you know, you're trying to have a discussion. Does it go well?
When I find someone who plays the victim and they don't receive it well, you're useless. There's no point in talking to you. You're one of those kinds of people that you're set in your ways and you're not prepared to learn. And then there are other people where there was just an ignorance and you've educated them, and they're going to take that and they're going to learn from it. I was at a horse show and I had my boots on, I had my riding pants on, I had everything except my coat on, hairs in a hairnet, my ribbons hanging off my boot. Lady comes up, she wants to take pictures of the horses. So we go back in the tent and I'm showing her all the horses. I invite her back out to have some soda. She goes, yeah, how long have you worked for these people? Yeah, no, I own 2 of the horses back in the tent. I'm a competitor. I don't work here. They work for me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But there was a teachable moment. And I hope the next time she encounters a Black person on the grounds of a show, she doesn't assume they're a groom.
Yeah. Shitty, innit?
It is.
It is. So I'm thinking that word that I said I wasn't going to say before we started, just so you know it's there, but I didn't say it. I get credit.
Credit given.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So again, one of the things that you again touched on earlier is, you know, loving Lord of the Rings, you're not represented. Star Wars, you know, we had Lando sort of shoehorned in there, but thank you for the help there in chat very much. You know, we just say Lando shoehorned in and things. So how much of the stuff that you read then, because I know your first story was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, you know, white girl. To be fair, I kind of wanted to be one of those too, and I never got either. So I can sympathize with that moment. Used to watch it a lot, Little House on the Prairie, and think, nope, not me. But clearly not, obviously, to the same extent. But I did always think, oh, brown eyes, rubbish. It's because, you know, I can feel that. So was there anything that then did influence your writing journey? So what was the first thing you saw that you're like, that is me? What's it like? It could be a book, it could be a film. When was that moment? Or was there one?
I don't think there was one.
There wasn't one.
Until there was Annabelle. And she was just larger than life. She's more powerful than any character I have ever written. And I yield. I yield. Don't play around with her. Like I said, I have dreadlocks because of Annabelle.
What did you used to have?
I just used to have my hair permed like once a year, and I'd throw it back in a ponytail. Because I am not girly. I was not about getting up early and curling it new. Just throw it back in a ponytail. So I'm putting a riding helmet on all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I started my dreadlocks, and that's a whole journey. Because they get kind of wild after a while. So that was interesting. And I have Annabelle to thank for that freedom you know, to be natural, to be me, that it's okay.
Yeah, it makes me incredibly sad though, Patty, just to think that, you know, you didn't see a film or you didn't read a book and kind of go, wow, I really connect with that person. I see myself in that, or, you know, you could picture yourself being them, you know, because I remember like having those childhood books. You know, my mum used to read me a lot of Roald Dahl, and she'd do like the BFG voice and all that. She was very good at it. You know, and I could see, you know, oh, that'd be exciting. I can go and do that. And I did see myself in that. You know, and
And
I
that
was so
is danger.
enthusiastic, and Matilda, you know, who loved books and stuff, and I loved books, and you know, it wasn't difficult.
And that is the danger when children don't see themselves represented inside the books and outside of them. In my creative writing classes, I like to bring authors into the classroom. And whenever I bring a Black author, the Black kids sit up a little straighter. When I bring an openly gay author or a trans author, those children represented by that community, wow, that's me. I could do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it is just so important that children see themselves as the heroes somewhere in the central cast, not the ensemble.
Yeah.
Not the ensemble, not the trickster, not the sidekick, but on center stage. And it doesn't always have to happen, but it needs to happen so that these children, they can just see themselves. They can be the heroes. I'm haunted by a student who, he was standing at my classroom door and he had a book and he was just quivering. And I'm like, it's 7:45 in the morning. What is wrong with you? And he was like, this book. And I was like, what's with the book? Miss, they're all Black characters in this book. And I thought something that just seemed so simple meant so much to that child. That put me on a mission. I'm on a mission.
You are.
Yes, I am.
Saddle up. Gunny.
And no looking back. Bring your flask. No going back.
Okay, so yeah, so the first Black character then that you connected to was the one you wrote. So that's obviously a really kind of, I mean, I love that she's out there now, but I'm sad that it wasn't there for you before. You know, although I know that S has helped you be more comfortable with yourself, and that again, that's wonderful. I just can't help thinking that shouldn't have had to happen.
And you hear the stories of Harriet Tubman, and you hear the stories of Rosa Parks and Coretta Scott King. You know, but I'm also a nerd. If there are not dragons or unicorns or the Millennium Falcon attached, yeah, I'm not going. I'm not going.
Okay, so if I promised a lightsaber, are you coming to Glasgow 2024?
Oh, girl. The only thing that scares me is Worldcon seems to be like this time of year, and that's difficult for a teacher because contractually I have to be in the classroom for 10 days after school starts.
All right, so when does school start?
We usually start school like the third week in August.
Do you want some good news? It's the 8th to the 12th of August.
I'm there. I'm there.
And, okay, and I owe you a lightsaber.
This will be, you know what? I just have to go horseback riding. I have to go horseback riding.
We can arrange that.
Yes. I'm there. Yes.
Excellent. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to veer off then, since everybody who's watching actually now is going to hold you to that. It's been official that you're coming to Worldcon. So have you been to Worldcon before?
I went to my very first this.
Oh, that's right. You said that. Sorry, you met your people. Sorry, yes, you did.
In DC, and it was. I mean, I've been to cons because I'm a gamer, and I used to go to cons all over the country and had a really good time. And then just didn't. The gaming scene changed a little bit, and I hadn't gotten out. And then COVID hit. That wasn't cool at all. And it was cool because virtual cons came back up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sort of missing my people, but I'm disabled as well. I need 2 knee replacements, but my mother is ill. So, and it's just me to help take care of her. So I've been postponing and postponing, but it's difficult to get around sometimes.
Yeah.
So that scares me a little bit too. And I'm stubborn. I will always get where I need to be. I'll just start 5 hours early. But it's tough. It's really difficult. I went to the Dominican Republic in August, and I don't want to say I was miserable, but it was difficult shuffling around.
Okay. So well, then can I ask you then about Worldcon from two perspectives? So as a Black woman, as a disabled person, what is it that you want to see when you arrive in Glasgow in 2024 on the 8th, 7th of August, like before, for visiting Pam? What is it you want to see there that would make you feel that we've hit the right marks, it's inclusive, it's diverse, this is what you need to be there and be part of it? What is it that you expect?
Horses.
Other than the lightsaber.
No. I knew what I was going to say. I was like, say it. I hope to see people like me. I'm going to be with my people, no matter what their colors are. I know I'm going to be among my people, and that gives me joy. And the Scottish are renowned for their welcome and just their amenities with folks. You're Scottish, you're included as being Scottish. So I'm really excited about that part. But I would love to see some panels. I would love to see some readings that really focus on diverse authors, and not just African authors, some Black American authors. I think we get lost in the shuffle occasionally, because
I know that
African mythos. Yeah.
Yes, African American, and some people except you would prefer to refer yourself as Black because perhaps you don't feel a connection to Africa. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm somewhat used to be jealous. I had a friend who was from South Africa, and he would tell these wonderful stories about baboons in his backyard and hippos on the river crossing, and some of this stuff would fall into his stories. And I live on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, and the scariest thing you might face is a rabid squirrel or a deer. And that's not really that impressive, or a raging nightmare charging you out in the pasture when you go get them to go ride.
I don't know. That sounds a little bit intimidating to me, to be honest. But, I think I could take the rabid squirrel, possibly even the deer.
Yeah, the charging nightmare, the horse that would charge you in the pasture, that was definitely.
Yeah. What happens if I throw the rabid squirrel at the nightmare?
Knowing the one I'm thinking of, she would eat it. She would eat it. But we
at Worldcon do not advocate throwing squirrels.
But one thing I would really hate to see is I'm hearing people talk about not having people of color on diversity panels.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how you do that because you're offending these people. How? Okay. Allow me to come to be on the panel, to share my experience with those who are not in BIPOC spaces, to talk about that experience and to share and to teach and even to learn, where people are coming from. So yeah, I would hope to see people who look like me in really cool costumes, and maybe a couple Black stormtroopers. That would be cool. And maybe find a husband, Pam. I need, a man with a kilt in my life. Yes.
I think there will be plenty of those around. So see what we can do. So, yes, I'd like to bring back to what you said. I mean, if there are any men out there who, like Patty, please do send us an email. She's a delight. You'd be lucky to have her. Although I suspect she's going to be quite choosy. So you're going to have to bring your game, I would say. But, if you like what you see, let us know. We can set things up. So talking about sort of diversity panels then. So I think that you say, obviously, don't ask people of colour, don't ask minority groups to be on these panels. Is the issue perhaps not more that they're only being asked to be on those panels? Is that not perhaps where the insult lies?
I'm not on the organizer side, so I don't honestly know, but I get that. That makes me understand that we're only asking them to be on these diversity panels. But I know the panels that I was only on one diversity type panel, and the other 6 were something completely different. I think Worldcon does a bang up job of representation. I was very tickled, very pleased with what I saw. I would like to see more, but that also comes from the BIPOC community. You need to come out.
Yeah. Well, if you have a look at our guest of honor list, if you haven't already, I think I am so excited about it. So Nydia Okorafor, I think that's just awesome as well.
That
so
is
that is one I'm very particularly, not that I have favourites, of course, but I am very excited about that one, I must say. Okay, well, we're going to move on then, and I'm going to ask you, I suppose way back there, I asked you if you were still cooking as a person you're going to be. So the question then is, what are you working on now, and is that helping you bake?
Yes, I am working on, I was teased about the romance in Forging a Nightmare, that it just wasn't enough. And I'm not like I do get
it wasn't enough, as in we didn't see enough of what was going on, or what?
There wasn't enough throughout the book.
Okay, all right. Okay. I thought you were getting complaints about the lack of heavy sex scene or something there. No.
Okay. Just the connection, the lovey-dovey stuff. And I'm not a lovey-dovey kind of person, but I do swoon. I do swoon. So I will admit that. So,
are you listening, Kilted Men? She wants to swoon.
So I'm working on the same universe, but with a different cast, called The Nightmare Hitman. And I have the swoon factor going throughout the book, which is a lot of fun. So in this case, we have a male nightmare who is trying to help a young lawyer solve a murder of her parents, a 20-year-old murder. And it's just really wonderful because, again, he's me trying to not show what he really is and yet be as helpful as he possibly can to this girl that he just absolutely adores. And then there's her being this independent woman, and I'm going to handle my business and I'm going to find out who killed my parents, and won't ask for help.
Who is that person?
And there's this awesome angel named Zachiel. He's a fallen angel and he's addicted to porn. Now that's not me. That's not me.
I love that you felt the need to clarify that there.
So, because I know how you are, PM. I know how you are.
Oh, okay.
I know how you are.
Okay. Can I just clarify? I'm also not addicted to porn. If anyone took that implication by that. I think she's like the means that I'd like to take something between my teeth and then bite you with it.
Oh my gosh, you're so bad. And while I love Forging a Nightmare, you always get better at what you do. And I almost feel like the Nightmare Hitman is so much better than Forging a Nightmare. The hellscapes are better. The villains are better. The good guys are just better. And there's a cat.
Well, I'm sold.
There's a cat.
Is a cat? Is it a demon cat or is it just an ordinary cat?
I cannot reveal what he is. I will just simply tell you that his name is Ichabod.
Ichabod. I love it. Okay. Do you know if you give that Ichabod cat thumbs, that's like the world's worst nightmare? Cats with opposable thumbs. If you use that, I want credit.
You're trying to get information. I refuse to give you any information. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, I shall ask another question. And you think your writing's getting better? So description, I mean, that's something you do very well. There's a lot of detail. There's, sometimes gruesomely so. Go Ichabod. You've seen this. There's a lot of love for Ichabod out there. Everybody's loving Ichabod.
He's a Maine Coon.
He's a Maine Coon. Okay, nice.
He's a tuxedo Maine Coon.
See, we keep saying how much we love Ichabod. She'll keep telling us things. Sorry, yeah, you write quite like certainly the opening scene of Forging a Nightmare is really gruesome, and particularly me, I've got my thing about eyes, so it's a bit like for me, but it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's hard reading at times. Sometimes the detail of it. Do you find that hard to write, or you're just like brilliant? Let me in here.
That was actually interesting because that wasn't written. The novel actually started with chapter 1 with Michael in jousting gear going down to the crime scene, and Angry Robot asked for a prologue. You know, writers always debate about, do you have a prologue or a prolag, and should you do that?
Yeah.
And I was asked if I would do a prologue from the killer's point of view. And I'm like, wonder what I can get away with. Because some of the people have said that the book almost borders on horror a little bit because of those descriptions. And I would never have considered myself a horror author, but it just thought, how far can you go? So when I sent it to my agent, and oh yeah, this is awesome. This is great. It's kind of dark. And then it went to Angry Robot. Oh yeah. This is good. This is what we're looking for. And then my mother read it. And she looks at me, she goes, Patricia, a lot of old people aren't going to read this. What does that mean? You know, this is kind of dark. Like, okay, Mom, it's what they asked for. I can just have fun. Yeah, I love description.
No, you do it certainly very well. I mean, but I think what I take from that as well is that you should never send things to your mother. You've heard the story about what happened about my mother, haven't you?
No, what happened?
Well, so I do write a sort of contemporary epic, and I like my sort of romantic scenes, and I write, you know, sometimes fairly detailed sex scenes as well. So I finished my first book, and I sent it to my mother, and she started texting me with bits of the sex scenes, actually trolling me, and kind of going, "Ooh, this," and then sending me bits of it by text. I could have actually just crawled inside myself and died at this point. And she was in fits of hysterics, thought it was the funniest thing because she could tell that I was just like, Mum, please don't stop reading me my own words back to me. It was the most cringe thing.
Awesome.
She thought so. I died a little inside.
I like your mom.
Yeah, if she's watching, hi, Mum. So she may well be, and she'll probably be laughing about this story all over again. So yeah. But anyway, moving on. So your detailed scenes, I know we talked before, you sort of talked about the new book, and I won't say Pam, I may never recover. It's true, Hala, I may never recover. That the book, your new book you're writing, there's going to be some quite graphic scenes in it. I know that's something I won't go into too much detail. And we talked about the idea that this is a kind of, I suppose, a hot topic at the moment, whether it should be or not, is the idea of sort of sensitivity warnings or trigger warnings. What are your thoughts on sort of doing that? Because you don't want to do spoilers, but, you know, we want to give people the chance to say that this is not for me. What are your thoughts?
I'm very much on the fence. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I feel that by putting trigger warnings in there, you do spoil it. This is to say, this book has this, and this, and you you take away those moments from the reader to be shocked, to be surprised, to be taken aback. I've always felt that your triggers are your own, and that you should control your triggers. And I've been told that I'm insensitive for that I have no idea what it's like to be a sexual assault victim. And yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I won't say that I don't feel a certain way when I'm writing these scenes, rape scenes, because they're tough. If you're a good human being, they're just tough. And if you are a sexual assault victim, they're even tougher. But I actually was reading to a group, and I didn't realize that I had triggered one of my companions, a man who had been raped. And it really sent him someplace. So I did a good job in the writing of the scene in that it affected him in that way. And I'm still not sure how I feel about that. So I'm really going to have to go with a publisher and their thoughts. My agent's thoughts on that. I wouldn't be sad, but I wouldn't necessarily be overjoyed by it either. No. Because what I'm trying to say in The Nightmare Hitman, there are some scenes of graphic rape, but I am talking about the rape of Black people metaphorically throughout their time.
And that's a massive theme throughout your book, isn't it? And
yeah,
you know, and this sort of stretching a long way back and sort of coming all the way up to sort of and hopefully partly a healing process from that.
Yeah.
But you can't heal without the wound. Is that kind of, yeah.
Yes. Whereas Forging a Nightmare was my exorcism, the Nightmare Hitman is my father's exorcism. My father's been gone for 21 years now, but some of the stories he told me growing up in the Deep South were horrifying. He tells me the story of when he was 5 years old and his siblings were younger. They were very poor. They were going to a neighbor's house to get milk from a cow, and a sheriff and his deputies stopped them. And these deputies had captured an 80-year-old man and accused him of raping a white woman. This 80-year-old black man supposedly had raped a white woman. And they cut this man's penis off and they poured turpentine over the wound. And they made my father and his siblings watch as a lesson.
What's the lesson there? Don't be black.
Mind your place. Stay in your place. It was very clear. So that story appears in the Nightmare Hitman as to why a certain character became a lawyer. Because they're visceral stories and they need to be told. And if I can just skip forward to 2020, one of my students, a black girl, was working in a Starbucks when a white lady came in. We were supposed to be wearing masks at that time, and this lady's wearing it as a diaper. And my kid, very shy, said to her, "Could you please pull your mask up?" And the white woman turned to the manager, who was standing there, was also white, and said to her, "This is why N-words should not work in public where white people have to be served." And the manager— Please
tell me the manager threw her out.
The manager said, "Ma'am, you can pull your mask up or you can get out of the store." And the lady backed up from the counter and said, "I should piss all over your floor, so your N-word has to clean it up." This is a 17-year-old child that she's saying this to. And that's as visceral as what my father experienced, though for my father's, it was definitely a lot deeper. But that's happening. That kind of thing is happening. And it's so ugly that people can't imagine that that could happen. But it is. It absolutely is. Yeah. And when you say, "Oh my gosh, that can't be happening," you know, if you said that was 1960s, you know, and when you say that, you upset people because you're denying their experience.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think people are just like, when I hear stories like that, it's not that I don't believe it. It's just that I'm so shocked that anybody thinks that initially. But even if they did think that they think it's okay to say it.
Yeah.
You know,
the quiet part. Say the
quiet part out loud. You know, everyone's entitled to be an asshole in their own head. You know, that's fine. I don't need to hear it. I don't want to, you know. So I have a joke about that, but it involves that word I'm not supposed to say, so I can't tell.
Later.
I'll tell you after. You know, it's become almost socially acceptable again to be blatantly racist or bigoted or whatever it's going to be, that somehow they think that it's actually acceptable to say that shit out loud.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, I can't stop you thinking racist things. I can't stop you being an unkind person in your own head. But what makes you think that you can come out into public and do that?
Because if I did it to you, you'd be butthurt about it. You'd be up in arms that I took you to a certain place. But you can talk to me like that. Oh no, you can't either.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I just don't understand the mentality of where it's become. As I say, I don't understand the thoughts in the first place. Yeah. But that it has become. Is it getting more? Is it more acceptable, or am I just hearing about it more?
I think it's getting more acceptable.
Okay. And do we want to blame anybody in particular for that?
Oh, 45. Cheeto Man.
Yeah. The big orange fuck trumpet. Oh.
She went there, y'all. She went there.
I did it. That was the word.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
But it's true, and nobody's going to question that. That is true. Okay. Right. Can I move on before I say something others shouldn't say? Oh dear. Where's my question? Okay. So I asked you earlier about what your kids have taught you. You are obviously an educator. What is the best piece of advice that you can give young people based on what you've experienced or just generally?
You have a voice. Tell your story. No matter how scared you are, tell your story, because someone shares your story and you will find solidarity with them. And you need to let people know. When my school board turned from being racist to attacking the LGBTQIA population of children, I also run a club called The Beautiful People, which is for that community. That community of kids came out in force, and they didn't have to get loud. They didn't have to get disrespectful. They didn't even have to be rude. They simply rose their voices and told their stories and swayed all of these adults. Tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Unabashed.
It must be something to see that then, you know, because as you said, you've got these young people, these beautiful young people who are saying, this is what I feel, this is my story, this is my life. And you then have got to then sort of physically watch that change from the school board, listening to these young people and actually seeing minds being changed. That's got to be pretty amazing, right?
Yes. And I love doing it in creative writing, because writing is healing. You know, it is absolutely healing. And one of my favorite authors, Al Hess, came to visit some of the kids, and I had some trans boys who asked, how did you put your transgender identity into your stories? And I will forever be haunted by what Al said. Hal said that they had thought of harming themselves because of how cruel society is to trans people. And he said, but I gave all of that to my character. And then I gave my character something that I didn't have: hope.
Mm-hmm.
You could have heard a pin drop. All the air went out of the room, because every kid understood that. Every kid, trans, non-trans, straight, cis, LGBTQ, they all understood that. And I still have chills. I will forever remember that. Yeah. Just let people be people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good advice, and Al, well said indeed. So you're a fierce advocate then of promoting diverse voices. We've talked about why that's important, why we need to include people. And your school, like many in the US have, experienced a book ban which kind of threatened that inclusion. So can you tell us what started that? I mean, what was the sort of match that lit the bonfire?
White fragility and fear. There is no other way to put it, because when you look at books like Not Quite Snow White, which is about a little Black girl who wants to audition as Snow White and is told no because it's for a white girl to play, and she auditions anyway, she does all the hard work and she gets the role. What is threatening about that?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, you have a book called I Am Enough, you know, which is about Muslim kids, Black kids, kids of all colors, disabled kids, you know, and I am enough. We can disagree, we can like different things, but I am enough. You are enough. Who bans that? Who bans that kind of a book? And
was there one book in particular that sparked? Was it the Snow White one that sparked it, or was it kind of a general trend, do you think?
It was just a general trend. It had LGBTQ people in it. If it was by a Black author, or if it had Black people or a person of color, gone on the list, get out. And it was just absolutely tragic. But a crew called the Panther Anti-Racist Union, which was a student led club at our high school, they stood up and they told their stories, and they showed these adults how incredibly ridiculous they were. And they got the ban overturned, which was just wonderful. My partner, Ben Hodge, who founded the club, we were accused of prepping the kids. There was no prepping them. They were telling their stories. We didn't give them the stories to tell. The kids protested outside the school for about a week. First, they had about 20 kids. The next day, they had about 30. And by the end, they had about 60 to 80 kids outside in the morning, peacefully protesting and saying, this is wrong. You know, we want to be educated, not indoctrinated. We want all history. Black history is American history. You know, all these wonderful things the kids were doing. And they shame these folks. And they really turn things around. Because a book's a book.
Yeah.
A book's a book. And there's no logical sense to it. None whatsoever.
No, I know.
It's fragility and fear.
Yeah. As the thing, I think you and I mean, have discussed this in the past, and obviously, you know, I don't have that experience. And I suppose the only thing that I relate it to, and I think this was what I'd asked you about before, was a sort of feminist movement, which is obviously, you know, my back to my trolling mother, but you know, was a strong woman and, you know, raised 3 strong daughters who speak their mind and that kind of thing. Is that, you know, feminism is about equality. It's about, you know, equality of opportunity, if not outcome, you know, because you can't guarantee what an outcome is going to be in any circumstance. But men that think that women who are feminists are going to be, you know, oh, down with men, they're afraid that they're going to be treated the way we have, you know, the way they treat women.
Supremacy. That's what it is.
Yes, yeah, they're not. They don't actually look that we're saying, you know, as a woman, when I say we, I'm saying, well, I want to be treated the same. I want the same opportunities. I don't want to be spoken down to. I don't want to be thought of as inferior because, you know, I happen to have breasts or whatever, you know, or not, as the case may be.
I don't want to be a broodmare.
Yes, you know, I don't want to be, as none of us should be judged by that, because, you know, it's a choice that we are human beings first, or it should be. But they do see it as they might treat us the way we treated them. Is that a fair analogy to make? Oh,
that's very fair. That is very, very fair. And when you hear that by a certain, you know, time that's, I don't know if it's in my lifetime, but it's close, that, you know, people of color are going to outnumber white folks. There's a fear. Not sure why. There's a fear because we don't want to be treated that way. Well, you know what you did. You know what you do. Stop doing it.
Yeah. I start seeing people as humans. You know, it's not kind of, we're, you know, it's like, you can look, there's a person walking down the street, not there's a black person or there's an Asian, but it's a brown person or whatever. It's yeah. But yeah, it stems from, oh, weird whistle there. Did you hear that? That was a weird whistle through my tooth. I don't really know what happened. That has never happened before. I was like,
not even drinking.
I know I don't drink, but I was just like this weird sound. Sorry, that was extremely actually kind of, you know, when you sort of like squeak a knife on a plate and it makes that horrible sound that actually went straight through my ear and made me feel a bit queasy.
I'm gonna here you go. We'll just put him through the screen to make you feel better.
Thank you. Inopportune moment there. Sorry. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. What was I talking about? Help. Anybody in the chat? Is anyone still there? Does anybody want to tell me what I was talking about? No? Fine. It must have been fascinating.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Anyway, I'm just going to crack on to... Sorry?
Never a dull moment with you.
No.
Never.
I'm just going to move on to my next question because clearly I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so this feels like an absolutely awful question to now ask after I've just laughed for a couple of minutes because this isn't funny at all. So I'm going to have a wee drink here and just get my straight face on.
Okay, straight face.
Right. So the Panther Anti-Racist Union, the PARU, the group that you talked about, I know that you were quite reluctant to get involved at the beginning of that. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about why that was?
In the summer of 2020, when George Floyd was murdered by police officers, some teachers came together to pull resources together for teachers because we were worried about the conversations when we came back to school that summer. And that's what sparked this whole book ban and just the hatred that came with it. And I had warned those teachers then, what you're doing, no matter how honorable it is, will not be well received. So when my friend Ben decided he was going to make this an initiative for the Panther Anti-Racist Union, I was afraid for him, and I was afraid for the children. And I'm a mean bitch. I'll scrap. I have a very long temper, but once I'm out of the yard, the nightmare comes. And I just felt that I had to protect him. And I had to stand with him and the children to make sure nothing was coming on their six. And it has come. I have been doxxed in an alt-right magazine, my name, as being accused of doing something that I did not do. I have been threatened in emails. I have been threatened in Facebook Messenger by people in this community, people who have killed cats and put the bodies in the mailboxes of school board candidates. This is how crazy these
what does that prove exactly?
People who have said that LGBTQ people have no constitutional rights and represent a threat to children. These are the people who are after me, who want my job. I have been investigated. My friend Ben, co-advisor of Paru, he also has been investigated a few more times than I have. And it has been, the scrutiny has been soul crushing in some respects, because I'm always looking over my shoulder when I go out. I hear a sound in my home and I'm like, what is that? You know, these people killed a cat and put to fear and intimidation and put the body in someone's mailbox. Bring it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Because at one point, there's not going to be a fence that will protect you.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think you're incredibly brave for, you know, knowing that as well, that you're going to be more of a target. With I think you said the school you work in is about 35% diverse. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think you said you were the only Black teacher who was involved in the group. So you become something of a target for these people.
Yes.
And so knowing that, you know, that going in, what you're going to face, and still doing it, and you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and because the
right
kids
thing to do.
See you do that, but the backlash is just,
it's hard. It is very difficult.
Are you scared?
I'm more mad than anything else. But I won't say that I don't live with a certain situational awareness, you know, but the Second Amendment goes both ways.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, okay. So how do you deal with it going forward then? You just remember what you're doing it for? Is there other things that you do, or ways that you cope, or anything?
You remember why you're doing it. You look at the bravery of these kids. I look at all of my kids and how they support me. I look at my LGBTQIA plus community and how they just need an adult to look at them and love them and not judge them. And then I go get lost in a novel that I'm writing. I find myself a road and I go get lost in hell.
Is it a vestibule road by any chance?
It is the vestibule road. Absolutely.
So writing is therapy then?
Writing is very much therapy. I would never quit my job. I would never. Yeah, I don't think I could take it up professionally. It's too much. It's too much fun as therapy. I run away, and I love the adventures I have with my kids, because sometimes they find their way into stories. I've named characters for kids, and they love that. So yeah, it's a great form of therapy.
Fantastic. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask you about then was that now your school was successful in turning over this book ban. All the books have come back. There's none that haven't. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay. A lot of other groups haven't been as successful as you. You know, what do you put that down to?
You either have children who are doing this by themselves and you have no adults backing them because the adults are too afraid, or you have adults who are doing this by themselves and they're too afraid to involve children because they'll also be called groomers. And it cannot work that way. The children need a base. They need adults to facilitate them and make sure that they are safe. Recently in Long Island, some children were shouted down at a school board meeting. These adults are shouting down children. If anyone treated the adults' children like that, they would lose their minds, right?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So that's what needs to happen. And the adults are not front and center. They are simply the foundation. They are there to guard, like sheepdogs or cattle dogs, to make sure that the kids are safe. That's it. And that the kid, you know, the kids control the narrative. Ben and I have always been doing that and saying, you control the narrative, and putting them up front. And that's how it is successful. That's how it is won. The children getting the voice out there, telling their stories.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been amazing. And the kids that you talk about, they sound like they're just the relationship you've got with them, the sort of what they've brought to your life and what you've brought to their life is just something really extraordinary. Yeah, and I've got a lot of kind of, it makes me feel nostalgic about teaching, which is weird, but in a really nice way. So, because when you talk about the enthusiasm that you have for the job and for them, it really is, it's inspirational. I very much lost that within teaching, not because of the kids, a lot because of lots of other reasons and the bureaucracy and stuff. And I love the fact that you found a way to fight back against that, and you've taken the kids with you. And I hope that you don't lose that and end up a jaded husk like me.
No, Pam, it's real. I think last year was the first time that I actually looked at my retirement numbers. I had never thought about retiring, but I walked in and I was like, I'm at the end. What happens if I need to retire, like right now? What does that look like? And then luckily, a month or so later, we were able to go on break. But that was even difficult because the world is just really coming apart at the seams. And I had a colleague who was murdered.
I'm sorry.
How the school year ended. So there was like no writing that was getting done because you just couldn't heal. The Uvalde thing in Texas happened with these 19 children being killed, and the 2 teachers. And then, that was just a week after graduation when you're sending these seniors out into the world. That happens. And then like 2 days later or something like that, we had a colleague who was murdered. There was just no chance to catch your breath with these horrible things that were happening. And I couldn't even find a way onto the vestibule road because it was just so real. It was so visceral. I fear for our children. I fear, I don't know, they give me hope, but I'm scared for them a lot of times too.
Yeah, I can understand that. But I suppose the thing to remember maybe then is that you're right, the world is becoming apart at the seams, but you're one of the things holding it together still. And there's lots of good as Patty turns into She-Hulk. But yeah, I think there probably are more good people out there than not. It just doesn't feel that way. It just doesn't feel that way sometimes when they're the ones shouting loudest and what they're saying is so incredibly ugly and most of the time not remotely true.
And there aren't many of them. These people are truly a minority. They're just loud. And people are just letting them say what they need to say, but that needs to stop. Someone needs to be like, you're out of line right now. Yeah. And you need to like go somewhere else because you're not wanted here. Your hatred is not wanted. Be gone. Yeah.
I think people are, I say they're afraid to call these people out because they don't want to become a target. And I know that you know what that feels like.
Yes.
And people are afraid because these people are nuts. Fucking nuts. They have to fart through. They have to fart through a straw patty. They have to, as you say. I love that phrase.
Uh-oh. I'm being attacked by.
It's a cat invader.
There's a cat invading.
Peoples. Okay, right. Well, I'm going to put it out to questions, I think, now, if that's all right with you. Hala is saying that she thinks you are incredibly brave and that you are definitely holding it together. There's a lot of love still for Ichabod Tuxedo Cat. I can see that's going to be, you're going to have to get, like, you had your wee stuffed horse at your book signings. You're going to have to get like an Ichabod cat of some kind, I think.
Pam, there's a bookstore called The Cupboard Maker, about an hour away from me, and they have cats that roam the bookstore.
Sounds like my kind of place.
Oh, it's awesome. And they're wonderful. And they're very friendly.
Sounds good. I like this plan. Okay, so are there any questions then? Oh, what am I doing here? That's fine. Just going to say questions. Any on YouTube? YouTube's a slight delay, so we might take a second for those to come through. If Dave is still with us doing moderating on YouTube.
And thanks, Hala, trying to hold it together.
No questions yet. Okay, Dave is still alive. That's good to know. Thought maybe, he just sort of buggered off at some point. Like, although he did fly back from holiday today this afternoon, so he's been very, very good being still awake.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we've got a question here from Annabelle. Although alive is stretching things. Apparently Dave's not alive, he's a zombie. It's from Annabelle, but I suspect again it might be from Omar, because he always likes to get the first question in every panel he goes to. It's like become a point of pride for him. So it may well be from Omar. Oh no, it is from Annabelle. Oh, Annabelle, I can't believe you did that to your own husband. That is shocking. Anyway, so you've talked about using writing as a way to get away from the things in life which are hard. Do you have a routine or ritual that you use to get into writing when it is hard?
I love to write in the morning, particularly when we have summer breaks. I will actually write in the morning for about 2 to 3 hours sometimes, and then go to the horse farm and then come back and maybe write a little bit more. But my life can be so hectic. I get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and get ready.
Why?
I just do. I get to my job an hour before I have to be there, because I'm going to have kids the entire time. My planning time, I have kids. During lunch, there are kids in my classroom. So there's no free time. So I am a really big proponent of making sure the tea and cookies are always out for the muse, and that the muse understands that we have to write. I am really big into daydreaming, that when you get in the car and the music goes on, you are playing a scene in your head. So that even if you are not physically writing, you're writing in your head. And that when you have a moment, you can make a note, you can write things down, and the muse is always there and activating. When you're tired, for myself, when I'm tired, I don't write because it's garbage. But that's my routine. I like to write in the morning, go horseback riding, come back, write a little bit more. But always have the tea and the cookies out for the muse to come and do her thing on the playground.
Nice. Okay. Annabelle says that she's an excellent morning routine. She's a morning writer too, but not 4 a.m. Oh my God. Yeah, I sometimes going to bed at 4 a.m. Can I just say, having been writing from midnight, but then I like doing it when it's really, really quiet, because I can't hear noises from the people that live above or below me, or anything like that. So it's kind of peaceful time where I know I'm not likely to be disturbed, unless I do the stupid thing before I start writing, which is see something funny on Twitter that one of my friends in North America wrote, and then I'm like, oh no, they're still up. Now I'm sucked in. That sometimes happens. Stop being amusing on Twitter, all of you. Thank you. So Dave is also a morning and or late night writer. Okay, way to sit on the fence there, Dave. Thank you.
And I think one of the tough things for a writer is to understand, my process is, I'm a pantser.
Yes.
So I'm not looking for perfection. I don't have a critic anymore. My critic is dead. My inner 8-year-old, when we go through the first draft of a book, it's unicorn vomit. That's what it is supposed to be. Unicorn vomit, like little kid telling the story. It's just a mess. it's all over the place because birth is chaotic. It can even be violent. You know,
You say unicorn vomit, but all I'm thinking of is like rainbow sparkles when you say that.
And that's pretty much what it is. They're
that's fine then. That's a perfect analogy.
But they make no sense in some sense. That makes sense. They make no sense. But when you're done, then you come together and you start pulling it all together. That first draft is just supposed to exist. It's not supposed to be anything more than that. And I think writers really beat themselves up that their first draft doesn't look like something you pick up in the bookstore.
Yes.
Not supposed
I know. You need to just get like flow. I once I've got into the flow, I'm fine. But I will sometimes spend a long time on a sentence trying to find a word. If I just came back later, it would probably be fine. But I get stuck on it, a little bit fixated at times, and then it's a problem.
No, we plow through. Inner 8-year-old's like, nope, more. Put the word more down for a seat. I don't feel like writing this right now. More. Keep going.
Fair enough. No, that is a good advice. Okay, any other questions before we start thinking about? I'm going to wrap up in probably a couple of minutes. So if anyone's got any more questions, now would be the time. So I shall wait a second to see what Dave says, if anything comes up on YouTube. Okay, where's my... Sorry, I've got one more question that I wanted to ask, which I missed. Okay, here's a question actually I wanted to ask earlier. Oh, hang on, we may have a question. I might not get to ask my question after all. Okay, if you had one book you could take back in time to recommend to your younger self, what would it be? That's a great question.
That is a really great question. And I'm going to cheat because I'm going to say 2. I love Save the Cat Writes a Novel from Jessica Brody because it helps with the plotters who like to have things.
Oh, can you see it? I've got it.
But it's also really good for the pantser because sometimes we forget to think about things while we're like driving through. So, and the other book, and I use both of these in my class, is How to Write Dazzling Dialogue by James Scott Bell. It's a very thin book. He gets right to the point because books on writing are tough because everyone's trying to say, this is my process and you should do it if you want to get published. These two authors didn't do that. They said, look, this is something for you to think about. These are just suggestions. Dazzling Dialogue is just a great book on how to bring authenticity to your dialogue and what the purpose of dialogue is. I always say to my kids, you're no longer Dorothy in the Land of Oz. You are now the wizard. You are the one making the machinations turn that are going to awe the reader, that will awe Dorothy. So you need to make that shift. But once you've made that shift, you can never go back again. So every book you pick up, you're looking at, ooh, their sentence structure is, did you see how they made that character? That development, that character arc did not complete itself. What's wrong with them? So you have to be careful of doing that. But yeah, writers, you are the wizard. You're not Dorothy anymore.
Nice. Be the wizard, not Dorothy. So, okay, what is your pet hate when it comes to writing that you see?
I'm going to get so much trouble for this. I'm going to get into a lot. I'm trying to think if I can deviate and pivot to something else, but I can't.
If you don't want to answer, you don't want to get in trouble, we will allow you a pass.
I'm going to own it because that's how I do it. I don't like when a character or when a writer uses all these different breaks within a chapter. So you have like a paragraph and then a break, a paragraph and a break. I think it's very sloppy. And I think you just did not complete the scene. But I'm a very cinematic writer. So don't interrupt my scene for me with 2 seconds of something.
Yeah.
Complete the scene for me. Complete the shot.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Yeah, scene breaks are fine, but not if they're cliffhangers. Is that kind of fair?
Or if they're just teeny tiny shorts, if they're only like 200 words or not even 100 words. And I'm like, did you forget what you were thinking about?
just like there to be brain fart in the middle of it. It's fine, we'll come back later.
Complete the scene. Yeah.
No, fair enough. My pet hate is people that make a statement and then use the punctuation mark at the same time. Like, she exclaimed with a. So it drives me insane the number of times I see people do that. Or it's like, or they shouted and it's got an exclamation mark. It's like, do you know what that's for? That is my absolute pet hate. So redundancies.
I hear you. Well, Michael Stackpole had given some advice years and years ago to try to avoid dialogue tags if you could, and put attributions in there to help your reader see where the character is, what their expressions are. And that was something my agent complimented me on, as far as not using as many dialogue tags as some authors do. And that's purposeful. You can't quite get away from it.
No, if there's a lot of people talking and stuff, and you kind of need to clarify at times, you do, but your eyes should slide over them. That said, replied, asked, those are fine. When you start using really complicated tags, it's to tell you who's talking. It shouldn't be telling you about the dialogue.
Yes, agreed.
So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I don't like hard and fast rules, particularly in writing. Like, people say, oh, don't use an adverb, or you can only have this and that. I think that's just a recipe for bland uniformity, frankly.
Agreed.
But there are some things that I think do make your writing read and flow better. And minimizing dialogue tags is one of them for me.
Yes. And I love that you said that about adverbs, because they do have their place. They very much have their place. And Holly, you're correct. I love action beats. I love it more when kids start talking about your sentence has too many beats in it, or there are too many beats in this particular scene. I love when kids start to recognize that and put that into their writing. Yeah. Very cool.
Okay, I'm going to ask for one last call for questions before we're going to start wrapping up. Speak now or forever hold your peace. No, okay. Right, well, thank you so much to all of our beautiful people who've been coming. Attendees, thank you. I was going with panelists. We only have one panelist, and it's you. You are beautiful as well, but it doesn't really work as a plural, so I'm just going to backtrack that slightly. So thank you very much to all of our attendees. Thank you for some really good questions. Annabelle says, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational journey with us. I have your book and I can't wait to read it. So this is a lot of
very, very cool.
So I will absolutely second that. Hala says, thank you. I will absolutely second that. I think you are an inspirational person. You're one of my favorite people. So I make no bones about it. I'm a fan, so I'm going to fangirl. and
I can't wait till we can have a beer. Yes,
I know. Again, you have booked to be here in 2024. If you let us down, we will never talk to you again.
That will be the plan. You gotta let me know as soon as hotels go up. You gotta let me know what hotel I need to be in.
Absolutely, we will discuss. You can buy your tickets; they're already up. But we will discuss. Okay, well, thank you very much again to everybody on YouTube, everybody who came to the webinar, and thank you very much to Patricia. You've been absolutely fabulous. And if you want to find out any more about Worldcon, you can go to our website, which is below in the YouTube description. Tickets are available now for Worldcon 2024, which is Glasgow, a Worldcon for our futures. Upcoming events later this month, we have Etienne Kubwabo talking about Scotland's first Black superhero. The comic book is absolutely fantastic. We then have the Basilisk's Horde in October, and then our Halloween event, which will be reclaiming paganism from horror. You can find all of that on Facebook, and I've already got one ticket sold there. and all of it is available on our website, on Twitter, and of course on Facebook as well. So thank you very much again, Patty. Really appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me. And Pam, you're awesome. You're my girl.
Thank you. Love you too. Right. Bye, everybody. Thanks very much.